From the depths of a troubled production, really one or two things can emerge. A truly wonderful and admirable film like Apocalypse Now can come out of it, or you can have an absolute train wreck like Waterworld come out of it. World War Z has had probably one of the most publicized productions, one of the most well documented trouble productions in the last 10, 15 years. It had no right to be as good as it was. Let me say that again. This is a good movie. World War Z is a very solid, tense, uh, kinetic, well made action semi horror film. It had no right to be this good, all things considered. Um, Starting out with the story, this is based on Max Brooks's World War Z, but it obviously ditches the uh, memoir collection structure of the book that would be much more suited to a uh, TV series or something like that. What you have here is a very straightforward narrative, but one that spans the globe and is told almost exclusively from Brad Pitt's perspective. And that's something I really liked. I'm a huge fan of zombie pictures, and I have been dying for years to have the zombie go worldwide, to have huge vistas covered left to right, top to bottom with zombies, with the undead, with just absolute chaos and carnage. And this film delivered that in spades. Up till now, zombies have been regulated to towns, a building, a street. Uh, the closest thing to ever get to that sense of scale and scope that World War Z accomplishes really has been just The Walking Dead and a couple of shots in Resident Evil's 4 and 5 and George A. Romero's Land of the Dead. But even those films really, I don't think, capture the sense of apocalypse, the sense of doom, the sense of this is everywhere and we really are struggling to stop it. I'll get to the cons in a little bit, including the PG-13 rating. But the pros, the first 2-3 minutes of the movie are really quiet. They're just Brad Pitt home with the family, and just like you see in the trailer, where they're sitting in traffic and the police motorcycle gets rammed by the dump truck. Right from that moment, pretty much for the first 2 acts of the picture, this film moves nonstop. It's very quick. There's a very fast pace to this movie. There's a sense of great immediacy to this picture. In time frame, it takes place over 5 or 6 days. It takes place in under a week from the moment that it starts to the moment that the film is concluded. About a week, probably maybe a little less. Um, so there is a great sense of immediacy to this picture. That there is a real sense to rush. There's a real sense to move. That time is not on your side, and the film accomplishes this really well, because sometimes in apocalyptic movies there's just too much time between events. There's too much talking. There's too much other stuff going on before the next disaster happens. And I'm not trying to say this film is light on spending time figuring out what is going on. I think it's light on story. It just knows how to deliver that in a very concise, very tight package. It's not going to spend 15 minutes over a single detail. It's really just kind of going, what's this, what's this, what's this, what's this, and trying to pick up what you can, which to me felt fairly real. It felt fairly believable that in a pandemic situation where it's just spreading so quickly that you're just scrambling and scrambling and scrambling to find a solution. This World War Z does this very well. It really gives that sense of immediacy, that immediate sense of extinction. um, Steven Soderbergh's Contagion, which I would say is similar in the sense that it is also a film about, um, a worldwide pandemic. That film is much slower. There really isn't that sense of immediacy, I would say, the sense of oncoming dread, as I got from World War Z. And as you can tell, that I'm really talking about this film as a pandemic movie, and that's what this film really is. More than a traditional zombie film, it is a an apocalypse film using a pandemic. Um, the Yeah, it is. I mean, that's. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to get words for it, but and I guess I'll address the scale. The scale for this film is great. As I said, I love zombie films, and I've been wanting to see that big, expansive zombie picture. And this film is, the $10 world is going to be a globe-trotting epic that I bet will probably be somewhere on the Blu-ray artwork or somewhere in the TV adverts. But that's true. This is a film that starts in Philadelphia, goes to New Jersey, goes to the ocean, goes to Israel, goes to South Korea, goes to England. This is a film that travels the world, and that's just wonderful. You really you haven't seen that before in a zombie picture. The closest I would say is Resident Evil Retribution, but even then, those were artificial environments. Those weren't, real places in the world. Those were just um, artificial zones for testing. So I absolutely love that about this movie, and that's something that should be commended and should be appreciated. That here we have a film that truly addresses zombies on a worldwide scale and really goes for it and to try to show you, you know, what this is doing across the globe. Um, Even in small little bits, there's a small, like 30-second shot or sequence where Brad Pitt is on the satellite phone talking to his wife, and a nuclear explosion. Someone has detonated a nuke somewhere between Korea and Israel. So you can guess probably somewhere like in China that they're over. And I kind of personally wonder, okay, what was going on down there? But and I kind of would like to see that story, but the main story is about Brad Pitt. And this is also feels a little smarter or a little more different than another zombie picture because this is a world where zombies exist. The zombie films exist, and Brad Pitt's first clue in order to begin his investigation is that there's a military base in South Korea that someone sent a memo out saying the word zombie in it, which has sent the entire world into a state of chaos with this idea of zombie. Is this really real? Obviously, it is. And so that to me, they didn't really dwell too much on it. The soldiers adopted different names for them. U.S. soldiers called them Zeeks. Other people refer to them as undead. Other people refer to them as zombies, um, or as unknowns. It's a small point, but it is kind of fun. It did bring a small smile to my face. Sorry about my dog. And this film is very focused, and I once again have to really think the sense of immediacy is because of its focus. That it's focused entirely on Brad Pitt and his journey and his experience through this. That you're not going to see. I think if this film was maybe done by maybe like Roland Emmerich, this is not a Roland Emmerich film where you would have a cast of dozens, and you see them across the board from the average Joe to the top military general. This film is all about Brad Pitt, and it follows him, so it does make it a little more personal. It makes it a little more relatable. That you don't have this massive cast that you're trying to follow across these locations. You just have the one guy, and you're really rooting for him to get through. Uh, and that's really so positive that this is a movie that, by all accounts, was just a mess to make. But the first two-thirds of it are well worth the price of admission. It's absolutely unrelenting. It really is just an amazing film, and I do finally get not just hundreds of zombies, thousands upon thousands of zombies on the screen, just rushing these small rows of humans trying to fight them back, and these other rows of humans making a run for it. I've always wanted that, and I was so deeply satisfied by that. World War Z on a 10 scale, I will give it a very solid 7. This is a very admirable picture and well worth a watch, especially in the cinema. And I would say watch it on the biggest screen you can, because for an epic film, you want a big screen. I am a little depressed it was not released in IMAX. I would have definitely seen it in IMAX if that was the case. But now for the negative portion of it. The big thing about the production was the fact that after the first cut of the film was turned in, the third act was entirely reshot. The third act initially took place in Russia, and the new third act takes place in England. I'm not going to go into spoiler territory what takes place, but I felt that the third act, the film didn't fall apart in the third act. I'm not going to adjust my rating because of that. It just didn't feel the right climax. The first two acts of the film crescendos, and the set piece in Israel, the famous, I guess now famous trailer shot, the money shot of this picture, we see the thousands of zombies scurrying up the walls around Jerusalem. That is, after that sequence, the third act just felt like a bit of a letdown. It didn't reach the proper height and go out with a big bang. It felt too small. It felt too condensed. And I understand what happened in the sequence and why the sequence is there, because it does give a sense of some closure, and it opens some doors for some sequels. It gives some closure. It gives some hope. But it just felt too small. It didn't feel big enough. And if anyone from Paramount is watching this, anyone who knows anyone from Paramount who's watching this, I would love for the original Russia Moscow sequence, in whatever form it was completed in, to be not reinstated into the picture, but included on the Blu-ray release, and have like a 5-minute introduction by Mark Foster, the director, Brad Pitt, a producer or two, one of the editors, the director of photography, and explain why this third act was reshot, why they felt this didn't work, as well as what they ultimately shot. The film's production is so well publicized that this is not a production that just was publicized in the trades and the fan sites. This got into CNN. This was covered in Vanity Fair. So this was something that it got more into the general public. And I think there's no reason to try to hide that. And I would love to see to see the initial sequence, to see the initial third act. Whether the original Russia sequence was vastly different, if the goal accomplished in the current third act was the same in the Russia sequence, but done in a very different way. I would love to see that, and I would love to compare and contrast, and that would be a great, I think, tool maybe for aspiring filmmakers and for film schools also, just to see how much doing something, how much changing the ending, or changing a scene, or changing an entire act of a picture can change the entire movie, or one's perception of the entire movie. And even if the vis effects are not completed, even if it's only a temp score, I would love to see the original third act as a special feature on the Blu-ray. But that's a small tangent. So my big complaint about this picture is the third act, is that it just didn't feel big enough. It didn't feel large enough. This film has so much scale and scope to it. The third act felt it came from a smaller movie. It didn't feel right for this. It was still solid. That is the act that goes a little more into the horror aspect of it where it's a little more one-on-one with zombies. But for me, it just didn't feel right in World War Z like this. Um, so that is my big complaint about the picture is the third act. The upside about the third act, it does bring an interesting idea of how to for humans to fight zombies. I won't say what it is, but it's one that, in the context of what the film is aiming for, it really works and it's really interesting and it feels fresh because that hasn't been done before. And I guess now to address what I know a lot of people are going to be considering negatives, I really didn't, and that's the PG-13 rating and the zombies. I know I'm not going to change any fans' opinions that there are, and there are a lot of fans out there who say it's PG-13. Screw Mark Foster. Screw Brad Pitt. I'm never going to watch this movie. To you, I have to be blunt and say, shut up and go watch the movie before you make an opinion about it. An R rating does not equal quality. You know, you can name a bunch of PG-13 films that are bad, and they're not bad because they're PG-13, they're bad because they're just bad. The scripts are not well written, the execution is poor. Just because a film is given an R rating does not mean it's going to be an amazing picture. And I have to pull from the Saw and Hostel handbook and say post those movies where we had a slew of films going for the ultimate gag gore and the ultimate blood and the ultimate dismemberment. There were a lot of them. Yes, they gave a lot of blood and gore, but they were bad movies. The stories were terrible. The characters unlikable. Just because this film has a PG-13 does not mean it's a bad movie. So, put aside your prejudices and sit down and watch the picture before you judge it. Because just by saying it's PG-13, that means it's terrible, is no opinion whatsoever. And I would say that PG-13, understanding the picture on its own terms, the PG-13 does work. Because this film does focus on Brad Pitt. 95% of the movie is entirely Brad Pitt. The other 5% is little bits with his wife and the children as they're on a naval ship offshore. And really, their only scenes together, only scenes are when she's on the phone talking to Brad Pitt. From Brad Pitt's perspective, the entire film is from his point of view. So I do not think that he would necessarily, as a character, want to stand there and watch zombies eating people. He would not stand there and go like, oh wow, they're just ripping someone apart and eating them. His goal is to survive. His goal, he spends a lot of the film running away from zombies, not standing around and looking at them. That sounds like a really smart idea. And from that perspective, it makes sense that you might not necessarily see a lot of blood and gore. That the film would not cut to the quote-unquote zombie money shots of zombies chowing down on people. That a human character like Brad Pitt would spend his time running from the zombies and not necessarily looking at them, watching them eat. So, I really did not notice the film in terms of a quote unquote PG-13 rating. The only time I noticed that yes, there maybe should have been more blood is when he cuts off the arm of one of the other characters for reasons that you can find out in the movie. That was the only sequence I felt that, yeah, they could have showed a little more, but beyond that, I really didn't notice it. I was too engaged by the movie. The film was moving so quickly, the pace so fast, and once again, the sense of immediacy, that I really didn't have time to dwell on, oh, why aren't we seeing someone's intestines being divvied up between 5 or 6 zombies? You know, PG-13 or not, this is still a good picture. If it was made in R with blood splatter and was, the money shots of zombies eating people, it would have slowed the pace of the film down. And I think also from the fact that this is not going as a horror film, but more as an action movie, that the PG-13 does work. And it's no reason to dismiss this movie, because in all likelihood, unless you find a multi-hundred millionaire or billionaire backer who's willing to sign away $150 million on an R-rated zombie epic, chances are you're not going to get that. To address the zombies and to address the CGI, I will defend CGI when it's put to good use, when it's there, when there's no way to do it practically, when it's there to augment the practical. The days of Cecil B. DeMille and 10,000 extras are dead and gone. They're not coming back. You might get 800 extras on the screen. You might get 1,000 extras on the screen. But that doesn't scream World War Z to me. What screams to me is thousands of zombies at minimum, tens of thousands of zombies swarming the screen. And those are the money shots in this movie, or the shots of just the streets covered in these running bodies, these leaping forms just trying to grab every person they can to eat. The helicopter shot in the trailer where they're all scrambling over the wall is an impressive shot. It's amazing. That's the money shots in these movies. That is what you want to come watch a World War Z film. That's what you want to see in a worldwide apocalyptic zombie film, are those masses of zombies. That's what you want, and that's what this film delivered. And there's simply no way that could have been done practically. Having thousands of people clawing over each other, having thousands upon thousands of people running down the streets. There's just really no way you could have done it practically that would have been financially and I think schedule-wise practical. And so I can forgive CGI. I can understand CGI. I will defend CGI when it's being used for these purposes and providing that spectacle that cannot be happened again. There are people out there who are going to say, "Oh, it has CGI. I'm not going to watch it. I'd rather them do everything practical." Okay, if they get 200 or 300 extras, let's keep that camera in close. Let's keep a medium shots and very careful wide shots. Let's not give that full city-wide view of thousands. Let's not give that full, nationwide view. Let's not have those vast landscapes just drenched in zombies. If they did that, I would have been very disappointed because that's not global enough for me. That's not big enough for me. So the CGI in this movie is used very well and used to good effect. And this is not an I Am Legend where they replaced real monster actors with CGI. There are actors in zombie makeup and prosthetics. The fresh ones have very much a veiny look coming out of their point of infection. And later on in the picture, you see zombies who are much older. They have like a sense of leather on their skin is a little more leathery and they look more dried out. It's not a look that will necessarily break any new barriers, but it is a still solid look. I am in the camp of George Romero where I say I prefer slow zombies over fast zombies. In this film, though, I will have to defend the fast zombies on the film's terms. That because this is a global pandemic and that it is moving so quickly, we are having trouble to react to it. In that logic, in that sense, on those terms, the fast zombies make sense. This is not a film that's saying they're going to be fast zombies because that's what Dawn of the Dead did. That's what every other recent zombie film has done, so we're going to make them fast as well. That's not this. There is a logic behind why the zombies are fast, and it makes sense. And for that, I actually do support it. I went, okay, on the film's terms, fast zombies, in the sense of World War Z, do work. They may not work elsewhere, but in this film, fast zombies, and understand the film on its terms, the fast zombies do work. And honestly, slow zombies probably wouldn't have worked in this film unless they went for something totally different. But for the film as it is, the fast zombies work. I did see the film in 3D, and I love 3D. I love everything about 3D. I will watch everything that comes out in 3D. you know, it's not going to be jumping out at you. You're not going to have zombies going like that. But there is a great sense of depth. There's a good sense of scale and breadth about this movie that I really enjoy the 3D. It is done well. Um, if you enjoy 3D, I would say yes, this is a film that is worthwhile watching in 3D. If you don't like 3D, I'm not going to change your opinion. Or if you only watch 3D, if it's truly exceptional, that's your choice if you want to watch it in 3D or not. Um, it is a post conversion, and I'm also in the James Cameron camp of you want to shoot it, you want to release it in 3D, shoot it native. The upside of this was shot on digital cameras. This was shot on the Arri Alexa, and I feel that a film that is shot on digital versus celluloid is a better conversion because film does have a softness to it and does have the grain, and that to me doesn't translate well for conversion. It does sometimes, but not always. I think digital just has a crisper look that gets the bare definitions between the objects in the space. So it's a good conversion. I would on a 10 scale I'll probably give it like an 8 out of 10, 7, 8 out of 10. Um, there are some areas where it does feel, it gives a good sense of depth. There are some parts where you go, this seems a little flat, but overall the 3D is very solid, and I know I'll be getting it on 3D Blu-ray. I do most other movies, and I really did enjoy the 3D. Being someone who loves 3D, I might not be the best person to ask, but I will point out bad 3D when there is. Here, it's not bad 3D, but it's not something that will necessarily rock your world. Um, and once again, I wish that it was out in IMAX. And I'm probably going to have to hunt this film down in one of the large screen formats because I really want to see it on the biggest screen possible, as you should too. And a quick note: Marco Beltrami, the composer, and Muse, I think, and someone else. I feel really bad. Um, they did the score is fantastic. There's a really great rhythm, great beat to the opening of the film, and I guess you might say a theme to it that really echoes the 1980s. And it's not it's quasi John Carpenter, not as dark, but it is quasi Carpenter. But yeah, that's great. Now the music is also really good. Overall, I will stick by my rating. World War Z deserves a solid 7 out of 10. This is the third act to me just didn't fit in this picture. It's still a solid third act, but it just didn't feel to have the sense of scale I expected from it. Um, the film does not fall apart in the third act, and overall, it's still a very solid picture. And the first two thirds of the movie are well worth the price of admission. This is the zombie film that I think a lot of fans have been wanting to see for decades, which is the pandemic across the globe, traveling to different countries, seeing it from all over the place. And I think the film should be supported for that. And I would love to see more. I would love to see sequels. I would love to see what new locations they go to, what they learn, and what they do. Um, and I really hope that not only the general audience enjoys it, but also the fans uh, forgive or look past the PG-13, the CGI, and enjoy the film on its terms, which I did. World War Z is a good film. Um, I won't necessarily say it's going to be a classic, but it's a very solid picture, undoubtedly a solid picture, and it should be watched. Um, that's it. That's my review of World War Z. Um, quick note: I wanted to do a mock verse block last week of John Carter and Princess of Mars, but there's some stuff going on in my life right now that I haven't been able to do that. But hopefully I'll get to it before the month is out, or by around the 4th of July, I guess. But that's about it. So yes, watch World War Z. It's well worth it. Um, see it on the biggest screen possible. Have a great day.